Rain slammed down, turning the sidewalks of southeast D.C. into slick sheets of broken glass and reflection. Jack Rivers moved through the downpour with the quiet detachment of a man who had spent too many years trying to forget where he came from. His coat collar was turned up against the wind, hands buried deep in his pockets. He hadn't intended to be here, this block, this neighborhood, this city. But something had pulled him back, 10 years in the shadows, a decade buried in black operations, training foreign agents, dismantling threats no one would ever read about. Then, just as suddenly, he disappeared, vanished into South America. A ghost living among ghosts. Now, 10 years later, he'd returned. Not for duty, not for closure, but because the past had a way of clawing its way into the present. A funeral had brought him back. One of the last men he trusted, dead from cancer. Buried with 2 flags, one American, one folded in secrets. Jack turned a corner into an alley, half sheltered from the storm by rusted fire escapes and sagging neon signs. He wasn't sure why he chose this path. Maybe it was muscle memory. Maybe it was the way the wind pushed him. Then he heard it. Not a voice, not human. A whimper, dry, broken, distant. He stopped, turned his head. There, tucked between a dumpster and a crumbling brick wall, was a shape, curled, still. At first glance, it looked like a bag of trash. But when lightning cracked overhead, he saw the glint of wet fur, the glimmer of 2 eyes. He stepped closer. A dog, chained by the neck to a rusted pipe. Its body was skeletal, ribs pressing tight against sagging skin. Fur along its spine matted with filth and old blood. Its legs trembled, too weak to rise. But it looked up, amber eyes, sharp, knowing. Jack staggered backward, heart racing in a way it hadn't in years. "No," he whispered. He dropped to his knees. "Blitz?" The dog's ears twitched. For a moment nothing happened. Then, slowly, it lifted its head. The chain clinked. Its tail moved, barely, a single trembling wag. A quiet, guttural sound escaped its throat. Not a bark, not a growl. A sound Jack had only heard once before, in the aftermath of a firefight, when Blitz had been wounded and surrounded, still alive. Jack reached out. The dog didn't flinch. He fumbled for his pocket knife, fingers slipping from the rain. The padlock was rusted, but the chain came loose with a single steady twist. The moment it did, the dog collapsed forward into his arms. No resistance, no hesitation. Jack held him, soaked through with rain, mud streaking both of them. The alley disappeared. The years disappeared. There was only this, man and dog, forgotten and found again. "You were dead," Jack whispered. "They said you were dead," Blitz shivered, pressing his muzzle weakly against Jack's chest. Jack gathered him in his arms. Blitz was heavier than he looked, but limp, trusting. He stood, cradling him, as the rain poured harder, rushing into the alley like a tide of memory. He walked away from the darkness and into the storm, heart pounding like it had the night the file landed on his desk. K9, Blitz, deceased in field. But Blitz was not dead. Blitz had survived, had waited. And Jack knew with absolute certainty this was no coincidence. It was a reckoning. Pumping pain flared in his leg from an old injury. He turned into a narrow alley and froze. The man spun around, gun raised, the child still in his grasp. "Back off," the man shouted. "You want the kid to live? Stay where you are." Jack's hands lifted instinctively. His body blocked the only exit, but he was too far to close the gap before the man could fire. And then came the sound, the low thud of a door slamming open from the car. Blitz had seen it unfold. He had followed. The German shepherd burst into the alley like a shot of living muscle, moving faster than Jack thought his body could allow. The man turned, saw the blur of fur and fury, and fired. The shot echoed. Blitz yelped, stumbled, but kept going. With a final leap, Blitz launched himself at the man, teeth clamping down on the attacker's arm. The child fell free, scrambling to Jack's side as the man collapsed, pinned beneath Blitz's weight. Jack rushed forward, gun drawn, But the fight was already over. Sirens wailed in the distance. Blitz stood panting, hard but unrelenting. Blood soaked his left shoulder, just above the joint. His body trembled from the pain, but he held his stance until Jack called his name. "Blitz, that's enough. You did it." The dog turned to him, and then, finally, his legs gave out. Jack caught him before he hit the ground. He knelt in the alley, holding Blitz close, pressing a hand to the wound to stop the bleeding. "You stubborn, brave son of a—" Jack choked on the words, brushing blood away from Blitz's muzzle. "You never stopped being my partner." Blitz looked up at him, eyes sharp, despite the pain. Not broken, not gone. Still here. Jack called for medical backup. Within minutes, officers arrived and took the man into custody. Paramedics treated the boy, who kept asking if the dog was going to be okay. "He saved me," the boy said. "He knew I was scared." Jack looked down at Blitz, still awake, still breathing. "You saved us all," he whispered. And in that moment, beneath the city's chaos, sirens and shouts fading into the background, Jack knew this was no longer about redemption. It was about Ogassi. Blitz had not just survived. He had returned for one final mission, and he had completed it. Blitz survived. The bullet had torn through muscle and grazed bone, but it missed the vital arteries. The surgery was long and delicate, followed by weeks of intensive care and physical therapy. Jack stayed by his side every night in the recovery room, refusing to leave, even when hospital staff tried to make him. Blitz, ever the soldier, endured in silence. His eyes never strayed far from the man he had once again chosen to protect. The media storm began almost overnight. Security footage of the rescue was leaked, Blitz charging down an armed fugitive, shielding a child collapsing in his handler's arms. The story spread across the country. News outlets hailed him as the dog who never quit. Veterans groups reached out, children sent drawings, celebrities tweeted his name. The government, pushed by public pressure, held a national ceremony in Washington, D.C. to honor Blitz's service. A large stage was erected outside the Capitol. Rows of decorated officers, veterans, and civilians stood as Jack walked up the ramp, Blitz at his side. Blitz wore a black and gold service vest trimmed to hide the surgical scars. Around his neck hung a custom-forged medallion engraved with the words, "Courage without command." Though his gait was slower, Blitz walked with unmistakable dignity. His head was high, his ears alert. He knew where he was. He knew what this moment meant. Cameras flashed. Applause filled the air. Jack stepped to the podium, one hand resting gently on Blitz's back. He was designed to be efficient, Jack began, voice calm but resonant. To follow orders, to survive what others could not. But Blitz is more than what we created. He is more than protocol or programming. He is proof that loyalty survives, even when everything else falls apart. The audience rose to their feet, not in pity but in awe. That evening, back at Jack's cabin, tucked high in the Blue Ridge Mountains, the world felt quiet again. Snow fell gently outside, painting the trees in soft white. Inside, the fire crackled. Blitz lay curled on the rug, head resting on Jack's foot. His breathing was steady, his eyes half closed in peace. Jack looked down and smiled. No more war, no more shadows, just a man, his dog, and the silent truth that sometimes the bravest hearts wear fur. Thank you for following the incredible journey of Jack and Blitz, a story of loyalty that defied time, betrayal, and even death itself. From a forgotten alley to a national stage, Blitz reminded us all that true courage is not about commands. It is about heart. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of the quiet heroes who walk beside us on four legs, there's more where that came from. Subscribe to Paw Print Stories for more real-life tales of devotion, second chances, and the extraordinary bonds between people and their animals. Because here at Paw Print Stories, we believe some of the greatest heroes do not speak, but they are always heard. See you in the next story.